Hello everyone, I'm back with some more tarot and spirituality stuff. I hope you're having a good May and a good spring. I think I mentioned in my last video, my last tarot reading, that I really wanted to explore the Hanged Man archetype. We're in the last few months of the South Node in Virgo and North Node in Pisces transit that we've been in since early 2025. And at the start of this year, we closed out a lot of long-term Piscean energy. We had Neptune in Pisces from 2011, 2012, and we ended that, moved into Aries. Saturn moved out of Pisces into Aries. We had quite an influx of Piscean energy in the years previous. And now this year, we're moving into quite a lot of fire and air, especially Aries. So as we close out, the last bit of this Pisces Virgo energy that we've been in, I really want to slow down and kind of sit with it. This energy, Hanged Man, is really challenging for me. It's one of the most difficult energies for me to work with personally. So these past few years have been pretty dense, and I've had to really, really try and slow down and sit with what this energy, this archetype means and what it means to me. And so I've pulled, a few different depictions of the Hermit and the Hanged Man from a few decks that I have, because the imagery and the stories kind of hit on so many different angles. The Hanged Man is so complex, right, that you can look at so many different facets and fragments and get something meaningful. So I really want to kind of go in depth with these different ideas. By the way, I do know that in the major arcana, Pisces' actual card is the Moon card. Hanged Man is Neptune's card. And Neptune is one of Pisces' planetary rulers, along with Jupiter. So that's kind of how I'm connecting it. This energy has been pretty potent for me. And like I said, there's just so many complexities. There's so much depth with the Hanged Man that I want to focus on that instead of the Moon. And kind of use the Hermit as an anchor to explore the Hanged Man, because in my opinion, the South Node is more of the anchoring force, and the North Node is the new territory, the new thing that we're exploring, the uncharted territory. So yeah, let's get into it, right? I've pulled, this is from the Marielle Tarot, this pairing here. And I love that we can kind of see these side by side. I have never pulled these two cards together in my memory from this deck, so seeing that the colors really line up, because this deck has so many different colors in all the cards. But these two cards just happen to mirror each other in a really beautiful way. If you can see, this Hanged Man, it's kind of like dissolving into the environment. There's this blurring that's happening. The physical body is like, it's rooted. But when it comes to their head, the top of their body, that would of course normally be upright. There's really beautiful flowing into the outside, into the universe and the nature that's surrounding them. And I think that's just the tricky thing about the Hanged Man, is I do find this energy to be so interesting and so beautiful, and yet it's really uncomfortable. It's really painful. And there's something about the Hanged Man that really pulls up from the depths the things that are the most painful, the things that you usually bury and suppress within you. Those are the things that get pulled up. All the parts of yourself that you struggle with, that you feel unfamiliar towards, because there are certain parts of us that we know really well, and then there are other parts that we are less fluent in, the language that they speak. And the Hanged Man kind of forces you to sit in that place, the unfamiliar place. And the Hanged Man knows the beauty of those parts already, but oftentimes we don't. And that's what kind of creates the challenge. Is the suggestion with the Hanged Man is to be in suspension. It's to take the pause, take the moment of peace. But we tend to really struggle with that, right? And that's sort of the tension. That is what the Hanged Man is seeking to illuminate, is whatever it is that we tend to push away is the thing that's the most important. And it wants to be integrated, right? When you're thinking about the Hermit represents this kind of long-standing study of something. And it's usually, the self, the soul, the universe, the connectivity of all things. The Hermit really wants to find this place of flow amongst everything and be a part of that flow. And already has that seed, right? This lantern, this illumination of truth within, and yet wants to understand it in practice. There's something about the Hermit, because it's an earth card, right? It's Virgo's card. It wants experiential understanding and awareness. To just know something mentally is not enough. And same with the Hanged Man too. This is a watery type of energy. They want to be felt. They want to be experienced in the body, in the emotions, energetically. And there's a huge change of pace with that. Feelings, emotions, physical sensations, being in your body, they really force you to slow down. And oftentimes when we're anxious and we're stressed out, we just want to move faster, right? Especially in this world, in this very capitalistic world that we live in. When we're afraid, we usually respond by trying to move faster. And these energies are saying, don't do that. Even though, that feels really uncomfortable, it's actually not going to help you. You're just going to be running in circles. And in order to live that way, you would have to lie to yourself all the time, cut yourself off from the truth, the clarity that you actually know that whatever cycle that you're continuing over and over again is not giving you the thing that you actually want. And, with the Hermit, when I was journaling about this energy before I started, I kind of landed on the word pulverizing, actually, with this energy, because there's something about the Hermit that really wants the purity of the soul. And I'm going to come back to the word purity, by the way. It's quite the loaded word. But the Hermit really wants the truth, wants the depths of what really is, what really matters, what's real in the world, in the soul, in the human being, in relation to all things. And throughout this long-term process, an entire lifetime and all of the smaller cycles and lifetimes that we go through in this larger one that we're living, they really want to break down barriers. In a similar way, Pisces is also about like a dissolving, a boundaryless presence. The Hermit kind of hits upon rigidities, right? Wherever we can be kind of controlling and hard-headed sometimes and stubborn, the Hermit hits upon all of these boundaries and sort of knows instinctively that this isn't it. There needs to be a loosening of that so that I can get to the core. And over time, it's through being, it's through sitting with these things, through feeling them, understanding them, living them, that those boundaries are pulverized, that rigidity is pulverized, and it becomes a part of that core substance. And this is why I want to come back to that word purity, right? We live in a world of hierarchies. And so many people within themselves, outside of themselves, in the world, towards other people, are always trying to create this idea or live this idea that certain parts of you are inherently more valuable, beautiful, worthy of respect and basic decency than others. And the word purity in particular, a lot of people will hear that word. I mean, it means something different to everybody, right? But there is this connotation a lot of the time that purity means something untouched, virginal, clean, right? Instead of saying the purity of the human spirit is all things intermingling together. It is that rigidity, and it's also the flow. It's the thing that disgusts you about yourself or the world, and it's also the things that are easy for you to find beauty and peace and serenity in. The purity is all of those things being able to harmonize together. And that's what's real. And that's what Virgo wants, or the Hermit. That's what the Hermit wants, is to really be able to sit within that, to allow that, to accept that. You know, to go against the messaging in the world and the parts of yourself that are so dedicated to the idea that you have to uphold hierarchies within the self. You have to believe that certain things are more important than others, more worthy of protection than others. The Hermit knows instinctively that that can't be true, but there's tension within that because it's hard to go against societal conditioning. It's hard to go against real events, real things that are happening in the world that sometimes pigeonhole you into survival responses, into having to do the responsible thing over the thing that feels right to your soul, right? Virgo wants to create space for all of that. Sorry, I keep saying Virgo. The Hermit wants to create space for all of that tension, because that's the experiential understanding, right? There's no right way, there's no wrong way. And even when you lose your way, even when you think that you're not where you're meant to be, you are. Even when you lose the pathway you thought you were supposed to follow, you're still on that pathway. You're just on a different vantage point. And sometimes that feels annoying because there are pathways that like we prefer, which is normal. But sometimes, you know, you have to take a detour. You have to go to a different place and see it from a different angle. You know, I mean, duh, there it is. You have to see it from a different angle so that you can get the thing that you're really looking for that goes outside of the mind. And then, you know, you can come back to that pathway, maybe, that you prefer. Most of the time you can kind of find your way back, but ultimately, you know, you'll find your way to the thing that you're really looking for, which is what lives within you and your connection to the world. And okay, I want to look at these two because I feel like that's just a natural segue into these images with everything that I was just talking about. If you see here, this card, this is the Hanged Man, but it's called the Bound Man in this deck. This is the Tarot of the 1001 Nights. And this image is so provocative. I love this depiction of this card. It brings up so much. There's so much to think about, so much to sit with this card. And this different, you know, language, the bound man instead of the hanged man, and we have this image of like a prisoner, it seems like, right? Totally different loaded connotation. As soon as you bring up prisoners and crime and punishment, that brings up a whole load of other things, right? We're no longer living in the realm of spiritual hypotheticals. Now we're living in real world things that bring up a lot of pain and fear for people. And I hope that you can see in this image that there are actually 3 scenes happening. All the way in the back, there's a man and there's a donkey. And it seems like he is simultaneously kicking the donkey and about to strike it with a stick. And the donkey seems kind of agitated, of course. And in the middle, there's another man. And I can't tell whether he has his hand outstretched as if he is asking for money or if he's playing an instrument. I'm sort of leaning more towards he's asking for money because he's kind of hunched over on the sidewalk. So I think he might be a homeless person, and he also has a little cat, it looks like, sitting next to him. And then, of course, we have the image in the foreground, the focal point. We have this prisoner and this man who looks wealthier. I don't know if he's maybe a government official, but there are some clear discrepancies, between their wealth, their social standing. And I find this lineup so interesting, so suggestive, because all the way through here we see there are always two figures. There's a man and a donkey, there's a man and a cat, and then we have this man and this man. And the suggestion based on these images is, again, there's a man and an animal. And so what does that say? Right? Who's being labeled as the animal and who's being labeled as the human being? Right? There's a suggestion there that really comes into play with this energy, because we live in a world that is unjust, and certain people do get treated as being less than human beings. Certain people do get treated as if they're animals. They do get treated as if they don't deserve respect and safety. And the thing that's sort of interesting about this image is he literally has his man on a leash. He has his hands open as well. His posture is suggestive and interesting in that he doesn't have anything on him except for the clothes that he's wearing that are probably like his prisoner's uniform. His hands are open. He has a kind of resigned expression or a serene expression, depending on how you interpret it. He's kind of saying, I mean no harm. I can't do anything to you. I don't mean to offend you. I don't mean to, whatever it is that he's projecting, because he has this disgust, right? Bewilderment. He's sort of maintaining a distance. Has him chained, but he's standing away from him and has his hands kind of crossed over his body, right? What does it mean to live in a world that seems resistant to getting past this dynamic? And how do you carry that within yourself? Because we all do. It's impossible to not be affected by trauma and societal conditioning that says that certain parts of you are more respectable, more pure in the shitty sense of that word, right? More pure than other parts, because we do chain parts of ourselves. And the wisdom of the Hanged Man, again, is the part of yourself that you are the most afraid of, the part of yourself that you're the most disgusted by, the part of yourself that you judge the most, that you resist the most, is the only thing that will set you free. And it will keep coming up. It's like I always think about the Princess and the Pea with this kind of thing, because no matter how much you have in your life, no matter how much money and comfort and material safety and like even love relationally that you have in your life, if you're uncomfortable with yourself, if there's something about you that you just are always fighting with, it's always going to poke through. It's always going to drive you a little bit nuts. And I think that it's interesting, with the Hanged Man, because there is that endless expanse with Pisces. It's the end of the cycle. It's like the ocean of all that is, the ocean of everything. And if you were standing in front of this beautiful view, right? Because I think this is so interesting, like an interesting imaginal exercise. Imagine standing in front of this beautiful expanse, like maybe on top of a hill or a mountain or overlooking the ocean. What does that actually bring up for you, right? Because some people might say it would be beautiful, and that's true, it would be beautiful. But I think that in moments like that, many of us also experience sometimes intimidation or fear, or we can even feel longing or sadness sometimes when we're seeing an image like that, because there's something about that openness that leaves room for you to feel whatever you feel. And sometimes what you really feel doesn't match up with what you should feel. And so you can get to a beautiful moment in your life, right? This beautiful expanse, and feel sad, or you can feel like you can't accept this, you can't enjoy this openness, you can't enjoy this beauty. There's a part of you that is imprisoned, and whether it's because, you know, you have this kind of harsh judgment towards that part, or you're dealing with long-standing grief for some reason, the Hanged Man and the Hermit kind of just want to sit with that. And it's not about finding a right or wrong. It's not about needing to understand it. You don't need to come out on the other side feeling any type of way. You just need to be where you are, and that is easier said than done. And that's why I'm talking about this, because it's easy to say it. But really being with those things, really being in the presence of what is within you, being with whatever is in your body, is so difficult, but I think it's the key to everything. You know, like in this depiction here, we have this like reference to Cancer in this Hermit card. And the sun and the moon kind of, you know, representing the balance, right? Light and dark. You don't need to understand all of your feelings cognitively. But you do need to give them space, right? And I do enjoy, you know, with the Hermit, there is this idea of getting to know those emotions over time, studying them, studying your own humanity. Understanding, you know, when I feel this way, is it because I'm hungry, or I need to take a nap, or I need to hang out with my friends, or I need to go on a walk? Or am I feeling angry or sad or hurt because of some injustice that's happening to me, or something that I've witnessed in the world, right? Or am I dealing with residual grief or fear from other parts of my life that I'm now projecting onto the present moment, that maybe are not happening in the way that I think that they're happening right now? There's so much to dissect, you know, within your emotional responses. It's never cut and dry. It's never copy and paste. And yet we tend to treat our emotions as if they're simple, as if there's nothing to appreciate, there's nothing to learn in them. And you don't need to rationalize them. You don't need to kind of come to a conclusion, like I was saying. But you do need to give space. You do need to learn to respect those things. Because otherwise, you're going to be going in circles and cutting yourself off from more and more and more of yourself. And it's just, what we really want, right, is this presence again. Presence with the self. That's what you really want. Presence with what is. And I love this depiction here, because we get this really beautiful image of this very, very old man who obviously has been sitting with whatever it is that he's pondering or he's being present with. He's been doing it for a long time, you can tell. He's experienced. And you know the thing that I love about this image, by the way, is, I don't know how well you can see it, I hope you can. There are these three birds, right? And there's one here sitting on the edge of this dish of water, I presume. And my inference here is that this man brought this water for the birds, because it's kind of an awkward vessel for a human being. I think if he was bringing the water for himself, he would have put it in a bottle, a jug, a vase, something like that. But he put it in this like dish. So I feel like he brought it for the birds. And I love that idea, because, you know, he's alone in the sense that there aren't any other people around him. But he has so much. He's sitting at the base of a tree. He's sitting amongst, you know, these plants, these little wildflowers and these grasses and mushrooms, and of course the birds. And I love that, you know, for him, whatever it is that he's pondering and being present with, it's not to create a distance between himself and the world, it's to bring him closer. And I think sometimes people misinterpret, you know, what the hermit is about. You know, when you're sitting with your fear, with your deepest anxieties, your inability to trust others, certain people over others, right? It makes so much sense that you want to isolate yourself and you think something's wrong with humanity, something is deeply wrong with human beings, and you kind of cut yourself off from it, seclude yourself because you think that's going to help you. But that's not really what it is, right? He's not really distancing himself from the world. He's trying to get to the center of that flow, right? And something about the fact that he's considering the birds. He's brought this water for the birds. It's a tiny detail, but it gives you so much context here. That whatever it is you're sitting with, let it be an invitation to trust the things that you might feel you should never trust within yourself. And I'm not saying, by the way, that that's a justification to act unkindly. This is about presence, right? You can sit with so many things and not necessarily need to take action on them. And sometimes it is that loosening, you know, of the stress that you put on certain parts of yourself to again, lose that rigidity and let that rigidity flow back into the whole thing. That'll give you the thing that you're looking for, right? Silences can be so alive, and these energies like really sit within that realm of just because something is empty doesn't mean that it's empty, right? And you can find so much life in the things that on the surface might seem devoid of life. You can find so much love and compassion and kindness in the things that on the surface you might think are disgusting. And here it's like, how do you have compassion for him, but also for him? And I think that's the triggering thing, is like, sometimes you see this guy and you're like, God, he's awful. He's so cruel. He's like delusional. He doesn't get it. Like, how can you punish him? What are you avoiding within yourself? Or like, this guy in the back, why are you hitting this donkey? Like, what the fuck is the matter with you? And we do that. We're this guy sometimes. Sometimes it's, you know, we can have disgust towards these parts of ourselves. We can look down on this part of ourselves. And other times it's also easier to have compassion for this part. And on the contrast, you know, sometimes we mistake this behavior for being powerful, for being authoritative, when really it's unkind, it's abusive. And we do this to ourselves all the time. And it is that exercise in compassion for both. And not flippantly, not just as a platitude. Man, it's so dense, you know. I can like feel that moving through me as I'm talking about it. Yeah, I want to touch on these and then maybe close out with talking about this card. Let me just double check that I'm recording still. I am. Wonderful. I love these cards. This is the Mars Power deck from SickSadGirls. These are really great, like, modern day depictions of these energies. I absolutely love that this hermit, this person is sitting like burrowed themselves into all of these books and movies, you know, that I presume they love, their favorite, their personal collection. And I absolutely adore that, because there's something so special. You know, all of us have like artwork and music and movies and all this stuff that means so much to us, that like has found us at the moments we needed it the most, changed our lives, we contemplate it forever. It's like they're our constant companions, right? And I love that idea of the Hermit card, you know, that it's the study of those things, the presence with those things that are always part of our compass, always pointing us towards the parts of ourselves that we really need in a way that feels fun and feels easier to access, right? This work can be really heavy and really painful and complex, and sometimes we need to sit with that. Sometimes we need to do the serious thing. But there are other ways to make this light and playful, and part of that is through artwork. Whether it's through somebody else's artwork or your artwork, you can find ways to make this exploration a little easier, a little more joyful, a little more friendly, you know? And the more that you kind of sit, you know, with these complex characters and these stories and their journeys, and you have this natural empathy for them and compassion for them, you're also practicing that for yourself. And it does help you, you know, in your life. It's a part of what creates your pathway. And I love this too. This depiction of the Hanged Man is so interesting to me, because I don't know if this was intentional, but when I see this card, she looks like she's at the club. She looks like she's dancing. And it's so cool because her hands are tied, right? Her wrists are tied up, but her hands are still up and they're still open. And she looks like she's moving to me, and she's crying. There's like a release. And I love that, you know, your hands being tied, it's like a phrase that we use when we're stuck, right? And there's something, we can't take action in a practical sense, maybe. There's nothing that we can do, but you can still dance, right? You can still be in your body somehow. You can still give yourself a release somehow. And oftentimes that's so important in moments that feel incredibly stressful. We tend to have the opposite response. It feels a little counterproductive to have a good time when things are bad, right? When something is not going your way, sometimes you get into an overthinking mode, an anxiety mode, where you're like, I need to figure out a plan. I need to figure out how to get out of this and be really disciplined and really responsible. And if I do anything else, I'm an idiot and I'm asking for punishment. I'm asking, you know, for everything to fall apart. And it's, you know, I'd be acting like I didn't care, and I need to prove that I care, when really it's such a deeply compassionate thing to let yourself have fun when things fucking suck, you know? To like dance or whatever it is. If you're not into clubbing or dancing, like whatever you're into with like this art, whether you like to go on walks or you like to go to museums or you like to play video games or you like to cook, I don't know, whatever, do that. And it will either create a new pathway because you cleared something out, or it will illuminate something about the pathway that you are on already by kind of clearing the fog, you know, taking you out of a reactive place. Because the more that you resist what you really feel, the narrower and narrower your pathway becomes in a way that's just not the way it should be. You can be in stressful situations and still find flow within them, and that doesn't mean that you're being irresponsible. It doesn't mean that you're not taking things seriously or that you're asking for trouble because you're just like lollygagging, okay? Sometimes lollygagging is actually the responsible thing to do. I'm just saying, okay? All right, let me read. I actually want to read from the guidebook for the Neptune power, because I really like what they wrote about the Hanged Man. Okay, and this is the card, by the way. Let me just show you that. There's fuzz on it. Okay. All right. The Hanged Man. Sagari, a haunting spirit from Japanese folklore, mirrors the eerie stillness and suspended insight of the Hanged Man. Said to appear as the head of a horse hanging from a tree, Sagati is both unsettling and sacred, a manifestation of nature's boundary between life and death, movement and stillness. In legend, these spirits are often found lingering near paths or forest edges, their eerie cries warning travelers to pause and pay attention. Like the Hanged Man, Sagati invites surrender and reflection, a reminder that transformation often requires a reversal of perspective, an acceptance of what cannot be controlled. Though unsettling, Sagati's presence carries deep spiritual meaning. It teaches that enlightenment can be found in stillness, sacrifice, and the quiet spaces between worlds. And they also, I'm not going to read all this part, but there's something here about blood rushing to your head, because you're upside down. I really love that. I think it captures everything about these energies so beautifully. I love that it talks about eeriness, how it can be unsettling, and how this creature is kind of known to be near forest edges, kind of something in their call that kind of causes you to stop and slow down. I think it's a beautiful thing to end on, that sometimes there is something profound about being on the edge of something. A pathway ends and the way forward is uncertain. And what does that, to kind of pull it back to that expanse, what does that feel like, when you don't have any answers anymore? And you don't know which way the right way is anymore. And you don't know what it all means and what it's all for. Can we just be there for that and allow that to be something that moves through us, something that we are present with, without cutting it short? Because this is such a beautiful process, even though it sucks sometimes. It feels so bad, but I think it can be really beautiful. And I can imagine that, once this time passes, I'll have a nostalgia. I'll have a nostalgia for this that I don't know, I might have not imagined when I was in the thick of it, but that's the way that it is, right? I just really hope that we can kind of make the most of these last few months and carry the lessons of this time forward, because they are so special. The potency of this time is something that we can always tap into, and this is a lifelong thing to take care of and practice connectivity to. So this was nice. I'm kind of glad that I talked through this, and I hope it's helpful for you. And of course, feel free to leave your own thoughts, your own connections, and ideas in the comments. I hope that you continue to have a great springtime. Or I guess if you're in the southern hemisphere, it's probably a different season, right? Is it fall? Whatever is happening where you are, I hope that it's nice. And yeah, I will see you soon. I presume. I hope. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.